So I'm with David Haas again. This is Dr. Susan Lange, and he brought up a really important issue about stress. And David, I want you to just tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are with stress. When people come in really stressed, what's really going on often?
Yeah. So there's two ways of looking at stress. Stress in our lives is useful because it helps to mobilize our bodies in order to return back to a normal functioning level. But the problem with stress, as you've probably heard, is that if it becomes chronic, it can create all sorts of problems. Now, the thing is, if something happens to me today, something simple, for example, like, I don't know, it gets very cold, my body will automatically stress to do things in order to get my temperature up, whether that means going and turning the heating back on or something like that. But I need to do something. Whereas I suggest there's a lot of stress responses, if you like, that come from not in present time. It's not about now. For example, again, there's that stress of if, I don't know, if I'm walking down the street and I see something, it looks like a coil of rope, but I see it as a snake, my body stresses, it goes into a response, the fear response. Now the thing is, as I say, in today, it's really useful. But what if it comes not from today? What if it comes from our history? Mm-hmm. And what happens, especially when we're very young, when something happens, an event happens, and we don't have the capacity in ourselves, or with whatever support we have, to actually help us integrate, to go through that response and come out the other side, so the system settles. If that's not available to us, what happens is it creates an imprint on our system, what we call a trauma imprint. And it's held in the body in a way that we have the feelings and sensations, but because of the way the brain stores it, when there's an overwhelming event like this, what happens is we just get left with the feelings and sensations, and the time is not available to us. And that's especially happens when we're in very early life, because the part of the brain that gives us the time isn't available.
So when you say gives us the time, what do you exactly mean by that for our listeners?
So, for example, it's like if I was to hit my hand on the edge of this table today, mm-hmm. I know I hit my hand on the table, and I get left with a bruise and pain. Now, tomorrow, if I have a bruise and a pain here, and I can say, oh yeah, that came from this event, which was yesterday. Mm-hmm. But if that part of the timing isn't available to me, I will have this pain and bruise here, and it will feel like it's to do with now, not yesterday.
Yeah, so if you don't have any memory of it.
You don't have a memory that it's history.
Yeah.
Because you can't place it in time. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you take that event which is stored in us, and then for whatever reason our unconscious brings that up when we're older, when we're a child, when we're a teenager, when we're an adult, it brings it up. But because there's no time on it, we can't say, that was last year, or that was 15 years ago. When I'm with it, it feels like it's to do with today. So another example is, it might be a place of where I get angry or upset, and I'm sitting here talking to you, and suddenly I get angry, and you go, what did I do? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why am I getting angry? You know, it's out of context. Mm-hmm. And it's out of context because it's actually something from my history which has arisen today. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And having arisen today and my acting it out, it comes across as a reaction, and it may cause you to go into a reaction. It's not good for relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because it's like, why is it there? So, but this in itself is a stress. And if you imagine, if you have a number of these imprints, these overwhelms that are held, and you keep bouncing off them, you can end up with a lot of stress. You're
It
going
can
from
be very
one,
stressful,
you
yes.
can be stressful here, you never get that chance to relax.
Because you don't pause and let your body catch up and integrate. You're just running with memory after memory after memory that
Yes.
all seems like it's current.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it can end up being what seems chronic stress.
Yes,
And we just bounce from one pattern to another.
yes.
And so in the work, as we're working with someone, the intention is to support them, A, to dissipate some of this energy, but also to be able to place those feelings and sensations in historical context,
Mm-hmm.
to develop a narrative that gives us a relationship with it, rather than it just being who I think I am.
So, what you're talking about then, so that people can use this information,
Yes.
is to be able to understand that what happened very early can be triggering you now.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And you had a great example that Mary Jackson, do you want to tell that example?
Yeah.
The
okay.
midwife, she's a wonderful midwife in Santa Barbara. She talked about...
Yeah. Okay, so Mary tells the story because, these imprints can come up anywhere. And she tells the story about this mother who'd had 2 children already, and what was happening in each of those births was that she'd always get to a certain place in the birth, and everything would start to go away from the normal natural birth. Things would speed up and so on. And so she came to Mary, and this is at a time, I think, when Mary was working with her clients, during pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And they discovered that that what happened in this mother's birth with her mother, that's what had happened to her. That at a certain point in the birth, things started to not work well, and there were interventions, it all sped up, and so on. Okay, so coming back to Mother and Mary, during Mum's labour this time, as she got to that point and her things started to speed up, Mary reoriented her to the fact that, oh yeah, this is what happened in your birth, and see where you are today. This is a different time. She helped her to orient to where she was, and in doing so was able to differentiate today and the history that happened in the mother's birth. Yeah, and when she did that, the mother's system settled down again, and the birth carried on naturally.
For a normal, natural third birth.
Yeah.
So, does that make sense? That Mary was able to, because she already knew the mum's history, she was able to track the mum, follow the mum, and go, wow, this was the place. And the mum could say, okay, I'm not there anymore. I'm here in the present with support, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
With great support, with Mary who completely got it. And then the mother could relax and settle.
Yes.
And that baby could be born.
That's right. And just to say, it's when the mother, when Mother got the history piece, when Mary got the history piece, obviously that was coming from the mother working through her story. So they both got that piece at the same time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the mother told her story, Mary worked with it, held that space.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important actually to have a lot of compassion for your own birth history and know that that might be blocking you and contributing to stress that's happening in the present, that no amount of work in the present, like more relaxation or meditation in the present, will make a difference until you've unlocked those early patterns. Would you agree?
Yeah, and once we start making sense of it, then we can differentiate it and we can just put it in its perspective. And so then it's like, oh right, that's from there. And as I get to, then I have relationship with it. Remember we spoke in the other video about relationship. So it allows us to have to relationship with it. And then we say, okay, well, yeah, that's that part. And that part worked really hard. And that's what happened. And today I have the opportunity to do it differently.
And I've got support that will help me slow my nervous system down so that I can do it differently. I don't have to struggle and strain all by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, support is great as well. When you don't realise you've gone into the pattern,
Yes.
then the layers of support like Mary can come in and say, do you remember? This is the place.
Yeah. So David, this is, and this is my whole thing talking with, in discussions with you, is that this prenatal and birth work is so important and so phenomenal, and I know you're one of the few people in England doing this. Is that right?
Yeah, doing this particular way, for
This
sure.
particular way.
Yeah.
And it can be so helpful and so deep. And I wish there were more of you. And I wish there were more people that knew about this work and how helpful it could be. So I really want to thank you and your contribution to this book,
Yes, thank
edited by John Wilks. That is on Amazon, and I'll read it out again. An Integrative Approach to Treating Babies and Children, a Multidisciplinary Guide. That is just out and you're in the middle of your book launch.
Yes.
Yes. So I really want to thank you for your wonderful work and making a big difference to families and babies and toddlers on planet Earth.
Yeah. And just to say that, you know, although this work is focused on early life and babies and children and their families, that we like to look at the whole cycle of life, because that goes through. You become an adult, then you become a couple, then you become pregnant, and it happens again. So any point in the cycle is useful to work with it, because it clears the space.
So that's like any point in the cycle where you're having difficulty, you can start to work with that, and it can actually unlock and help all the other parts flow as well, too.
Yes. So that's the one cycle, and the other is just our cycle of life.
Yes.
So how we go from a newborn to a child, to a teenager, to an adult, to coming into a relationship, and then to becoming parents, you know, through the pregnancy stage, and then we're back to working with baby again. So you can work at any stage.
Yes, with generations of families.
Yeah,
Yes.
because this stuff does go through generationally.
Yes, fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and keep
Yeah,
up the good
thank
work.
you.
All right, bye-bye.
meridianholistichealth.com